Hello, my name is Brandon Enright, and today I would like to show how to pick the ABUS 3455. This lock is quite solid and offers some unique challenges that most other locks don't have, so I think it deserves a video unto itself. I recently made a video about picking spool pins and how to get the feel for spool pins, and this lock has a bunch of spool pins in it. But because of the incredibly stiff spring that this lock has, it makes sort of figuring out when you're getting counter rotation quite a bit more challenging. This particular lock was purchased on eBay. There's a company that's selling them. They're stamped property of New York City Housing Authority. Apparently there was a contract that they had with New York City where they had to source a bunch of locks as part of the contract. And unbeknownst to them, they sourced good, solid German ABUS locks, not knowing that they had to source all the materials from U.S. manufacturers, and so the city refused to actually purchase these locks from them. And so they have a whole bunch of extras that they're selling on eBay for pretty cheap. So I've bought more than a dozen of these at I think it's like $11 each or $7 each or something really low like that. So there's two things that make this lock really hard. One of them is that it's got a very good keyway. This is like a Yale-style keyway. It's very paracentric. It's quite difficult to get around that warding. And then sort of more importantly, it has an unbelievably stiff spring. Like the spring on this lock is probably the stiffest spring you'll ever feel on a lock. Like the amount of force it takes to turn that is really significant. So I think that because the stiff spring is such a challenge here, it's probably best to start on some locks that have basically the same core but don't have a stiff spring. And so here's the key to this 3455, and you can see it fits perfectly into this 4140. It's the same keyway, basically the same core. This one is a 5-pin core, and this one's a 6-pin core, but it does still fit. And so you can practice the keyway on this lock that gives you much better feedback, and it also has fewer pins, so it's a little bit less finicky. It gives you a little bit of a few more successes under your belt before you try to tackle this, since this is quite a bit harder to same core, but it's quite a bit harder to sort of get the feel because of the stiff spring here. So then the other tricky thing, because of the tight keyway, is that at least in my case, my preferred pick is these Peterson hooks in the 15 thousandths government steel, the super flexible picks. I really like that you can sort of work around warding in most locks because they're so darn flexible, and so they're so thin that they can go right up between the wards, and that just does not work in these locks. What ends up happening is, if you want to pick from the bottom around these wards, this upper left warding deflects your pick so badly that you end up getting stuck in the right side of the lock, and it's really difficult to lift the pins. You have to put so much force to sort of bend the hook around that warding to get the pins lifted that it becomes really difficult to figure out whether or not you're lifting a pin, or whether you're stuck on the side of the core or the side of the keyway, or maybe the pin is already set. It's really difficult to feel that, and so you just can't use the pick from the bottom. And so you might say, okay, well, then just pick off of the top of this lower right warding. And the problem is this pick is so thin that if you try to do that, it just slips down into the bottom of the core because the warding is curved. It doesn't offer a nice shelf. And so the solution to that is to use one of these thicker sparrow picks with a much shallower hook. And you can pick it off of the lower right warding very easily because it's thicker. It doesn't want to slip down into the bottom. The only way for you to get to slip down to the bottom is to intentionally turn it. So if you just pick normally off of that ward, you won't have any trouble. And so this is a very shallow hook, and you're going to have to slip it underneath those pins, but it'll get the job done. And so let me demonstrate that on this 4140 first. So let's see if that's not the 4140 key. Here's the 4140 key. Okay, and so you might say, well, is this hook even going to work on this aggressive a key? So this is a 5-pin lock. So there's pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, and pin 5. So can we actually reach these pins? And the answer is yes. So you can slip the hook under pin 2 and you can reach pin 3. So you can see that pin 3 can be lifted while reaching under pin 2, and then pin 5 can be reached while lifting under both pins, 3 and 4. So once these are set, you're going to have to slip your hook underneath them, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. It'll be a little bit difficult. You have to come at an angle to get underneath them, but you'll be able to do it. So let me see if I can demonstrate that. I should also talk about tensioners. Because of the shape of the top of this keyway, your favorite Peterson pry bar in the 40 thousandths of an inch, or even just the 30 thousandths of an inch, just does not fit at all. So I have the 30 thousandths of an inch. This is either 30 or 32. I'm not sure which. I don't have my calipers here. And if you try to put it in the top of the keyway, you can get it to fit, but it's at a weird angle because it's not sitting in the keyway very well, and it's actually blocking my access to the pins. You have to actually go with even thinner. You have to go with one of these 25 thousandths of an inch thick ones, and then those will fit in the top of the keyway. But then it is super flexible. I mean, that is ridiculous the amount of flex that you get on that. So that is not a problem in this lock because you don't actually need to use a lot of tension. So you can still feel everything. But in this 3455, the spring is so stiff that, check this out. If I turn the key with my pry bar, look at how much it bends before it even starts. Right? So the spring is incredibly stiff in this thing. So just to overcome the spring tension requires bending the pry bar pretty significantly. So that's going to be one of the big hurdles that we have to overcome. So let's first start on the 4140, which doesn't have the spring to overcome. And this is going to allow us to practice slipping picking off of that lower right ward. It's going to allow us to practice slipping under the pins, and it's going to allow us to feel what the counter rotation is like on these spool pins without having to contend with the really, really stiff spring. So get my hook in here, and I'm just going to lift each pin, hopefully setting the easy to set ones. And I'm on pin 1 here. What I'm looking for is I'm just looking for that false set that's going to allow us to start working on the spools. Okay, I'm going to reset. I was not feeling anything there. Okay. Having trouble slipping under those pins. I want to get to the back of the lock. Okay, I think, there we go. So I believe I just set pin 5, and that's what put us into the false set. Now we're in a really deep false set. So now nothing on pin 1. Pin 2 is clearly already set. It's down at the bottom and it won't budge. Pin 3 is giving me counter rotation. There we go. Lock is open. And so what did we do there? Well, so I got pin 1 set, and I probably got pin 1 set while I was just trying to slip underneath. Like pin 1 just set automatically. I didn't have to do anything. And then I got pin 5 set, and that put us into the false set. So at that point, pin 1, pin 2, and pin 4 were all set. So pin 2 and pin 4 kind of set themselves. There are, like, just the act of slipping the hook underneath gets them set. And so then all I had to do was slip under 2, feel the counter rotation on 3, back off on tension, and boom, the lock popped right open. So we're going to have to do something similar on this 34.55, but now we're going to have to contend with this ridiculously strong, super stiff spring. This is the stiffest spring on any lock I have ever felt. So again, we're going to have to work with the 20 thousandths Peterson pry bar. This is actually, I think, a knockoff clone made by Sparrows in the thin version. Peterson doesn't have anything less than 40 thousandths of an inch thick. And just to overcome the spring tension, to even put any tension on the pins, I have to bend the tension wrench a ridiculous amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rock on each one of these pins, hopefully get the easy one set. I'm trying to slip underneath the pin there. Okay, I got underneath, I don't know, it was pin 3 or 4, something like that. So I'm just trying to get us into that false set here. Okay, get my pick out, start back on pin 1. Okay, I just got into a false set. I set pin 1, and now I'm in a really shallow false set. And so now the trick is going to be to find the counter rotation on the pin, the remaining pins that are going to give us counter rotation. But we have to do so. Normally our inclination would be to rock up on a pin and come back on the tension at the same time to see if you get the core to turn backwards on you. But the problem is if I let up on tension, my tension wrench comes back because I'm already bending it so much that it almost feels like you're getting counter rotation by just backing off on the tension. So you have to pay close attention to what's happening at the core. So let me show you. I'm going to rock up on pin 2. Pin 2 is already set. I'm getting nothing. And so when I back off on tension here, you can see that core is not budging at all. So now okay, I need to get underneath 2. Okay, now I'm on 3, and I have to lift up super, super hard with high tension to see if I get any counter rotation, and I'm not. So now I'm on pin, okay, I can't tell if I'm on 3 or 4, but now when I lift up on it, okay, I don't have the pick press, okay, now when I lift up on the pin that I'm on, I do get a small movement in the core. When I back up on tension and rock up hard on it, I get a tiny, tiny subtle motion in the core, which makes me think that it's a spool. So let me see if I can get repositioned on it. Okay, I'm repositioned on it, and I'm going to try to get it set. Okay, I think I just got it set. So I think I'm back in my false set. Let me pin 2. Okay, no, I'm back on pin 3. I didn't get it set properly. So let's try that again. Okay, maybe I got it set that time. Okay, now I'm on pin 4, nothing. Slipping under pin 4 to pin 5, and I'm getting counter rotation. You can see it in the core. Okay, I just got pin 5 set, so I wonder if I dropped a pin. Okay, I'm having trouble slipping. I'm trying to slip underneath one of those pins. I'm trying to slip in the back. Okay, I'm in the back. Let's see if I get any counter rotation. Yeah, I'm getting a tiny bit of counter rotation on pin 6, and then the lock is open. Okay, so I know that didn't look easy. It wasn't easy, but I've had lots of practice sort of decoding the very subtle core movements, and I cannot, I swear, I cannot feel that core movement. I have to look to see the core moving. So what were we doing there? Here's the, I think this is the key. Let me make sure that this is actually the key. Yeah, this is the key. Okay, so we rocked up on each one of the pins until we got ourselves into a false set, and I think I got into the false set lifting up pin 5. So I'd somehow already set, so there's pin 1, there's pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, pin 5, and pin 6. So I got into the false set on either pin 5 or pin 6. I'm not sure which. I'd probably already set pins 1 and 2 and 3, or at least 1 and 2. 3, I was getting some counter rotation on, and I was able to get it set. And then I had to slip underneath 4, which is quite difficult, to reach either 5 or 6. I couldn't actually tell if I was reaching 5 or 6 to get the counter rotation. So I got the counter rotation on 3, and it's either 5 or 6, and I'm not sure which. It's just too hard to tell the depth, and because of the spring, I find it hard to count the pins very well. It was this pin that I was slipping underneath, this pin 4, to reach either pin 5 or pin 6 that finally got the lock open. I was able to get that very, very subtle counter rotation. So let me see if I can show that. I know this video is going long, but let me see if I can show that one more time, or at least show the counter rotation one more time. So this is the 30 thousandths. That's the 20 thousandths. There we go, 25 thousandths. Okay, so let's see if we can get back into that false set. So I'm already having trouble getting under pin 4. I felt like it got set when I got underneath it. I'm on pin 6. And let's see if we can get into a false set. I'm on pin 1. Okay, pin 1. Now we're in a false set. Let's go into the back and see if we can get counter rotation on pin 6 again. So get underneath pin 4, which is a little bit difficult to do. And I'm on the tension very stiff while I do that. Trying to get underneath pin 4. Okay. I am on, I think I'm on pin 5, and I'm getting counter rotation. So what I do is I rock up really hard, and I see a very subtle movement on the core when I do it. So I'm just trying to get the head of the hook positioned well on the pin, because you know, when I'm slipped under a pin, if I'm not positioned on the pin that I want to be, right on the tip, then I'll end up having to pry up too much, and then I'll end up accidentally setting the pin that I'm trying to slip under, or I'm trying to overset it, or I'll just get blocked by it if it's already set and I won't be able to lift it up enough. So okay, getting a little bit of counter rotation there. There we go, I got it set. I think that was pin 5. Okay, now let's see. Okay, I'm getting counter rotation on 3. Okay, now I'm in a deeper false set. Okay, let's see what's left. I'm gonna try to slip under 4 again. Okay, I'm on pin 6, and I'm getting counter rotation. There we go, lock is open. Once you get the hang of it, once you figure out how to read the counter rotation, and once you figure out how to sort of overcome the spring tension by just using a stupidly strong tension, just overcome the spring tension, and then very carefully backing up slowly, you'll be able to pick this lock. This is not a hard core. The lock itself, the whole package is hard, but you can practice the core on one of these smaller ones that doesn't have a spring, or in this case, this 4150 does have a spring, but the spring is not anywhere near as stiff. You can practice the sort of the feel of the core and the counter rotation and that sort of thing, and the pins, without having to contend with a super heavy spring before you sort of graduate to the super heavy spring of the 3455. But you know, these cores are just not that good. If ABUS had put like their 83 core, the ABUS 83 core in this thing, with those really good spool pins that are, you know, manufactured to really good tolerances, I would think that this lock would be nearly impossible to pick. It would be so difficult to contend with both the tension and constantly dropping the spools of the really good tension, or, you know, the really good tolerances, that sort of thing. But as it stands, really the only security mechanism to this core is the shape of the keyway and the strong spring. The core itself and the actual pins, pretty easy to handle. So hopefully that will help you tackle the 3455 or any other lock that has either a similarly tight keyway or a similarly stiff spring. Thanks for watching.